Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. It's great to see so many familiar faces. Welcome to the June 13th Mobility and Access Coalition meeting. We have a pretty full agenda today, so I'll go ahead and get started. Just a reminder, we are recording this meeting, so if you have to hop off a little bit early, we can send you the recording link after the fact. If you wouldn't mind, please putting your name and your organization in the chat. That helps us make sure that we have the right meeting minutes who had attended today. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I just want to confirm everybody can see the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, wonderful. So we'll go ahead and get going here. So just a couple of Zoom housekeeping features. You should have gotten an email from Zoom, our Zoom account, when you registered. You can open the meeting in the Zoom app or in the browser. And then if you happen to lose connection during this meeting, you can always call into the meeting using the number that it's a one-click number that was in that email. You won't be able to see the slides that we're sharing, but you'll be able to listen and follow the conversation. So a couple more Zoom housekeeping features. We ask that everybody mute themselves unless they're speaking. And if you do want to say something, just feel free to either raise your hand, put it in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask a question. Video does help with communication. In particular, in this virtual world, it's not always easy to communicate without the nonverbal cues. So we ask that if you feel comfortable, please use your video when asking questions. Additionally, you can see the other participants in the meeting by clicking on participants, and you'll have a list of everybody who's here. There is the chat function, which most of you have been able to find by putting your name and organization in that chat function. And then also we will be able to share some information in that chat as well. So I know that if you have any information that maybe isn't on the agenda, but you want to get it out to the network of Mobility and Access Coalition members, then please feel free to share upcoming events or any information that you want to point out in that chat. So again, we meet on the second Monday of the month, and we meet 2 to 3:45, and right now we're focusing on the odd months. We're doing internally focused, so we're focusing on collaborative projects that we're working on. And for the even months, which is June, we're focusing on external projects that we would like to provide feedback on or be able to coordinate with. So again, the Mobility and Access Coalition is really a linchpin service. So the transportation is essential to accessing all of the social determinants of health. And our goal is through collaboration to ensure that people have access to information and resources that they need in order to access transportation, and also provide feedback and improve the transportation system, in particular for vulnerable and underserved users. Here's today's agenda. So we're going to have an update on the transportation funding from Kathleen Brackey. We're going to just talk briefly about the fare-free, zero-fare August option. I'm not sure if RTD is going to be able to provide that or if we'll be able to provide that. Also, we have a series of presentations on the 119 projects, which include the roadway, the bikeway, and the bus rapid transit project. We have Oscar, sorry, there's a typo there, Oscar matching grant program that they work with municipalities on. And we also have the Area Agency on Aging presentation on their funding, and then RTD's service optimization plan. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. And Kathleen, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for the transportation funding update.
Great, thanks so much, Angel, and everyone. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and provide this overview for you. I also want to introduce Stacy Proctor from Boulder County's transportation planning team, and she's been working, really leading this effort to look at transportation funding for Boulder County. We're kind of a team effort here. Also, Tim Swope from Public Works is part of our core team as well, but certainly been a team effort across multiple Boulder County departments, including community planning, permitting, Public Works, finance, and many others. So we want to share this information with you today, and to also invite you to participate in a public meeting that we're hosting tomorrow evening on this topic as well. So I'll go ahead and jump through some slides, and then certainly want to provide time for questions and answers and for your input. So these are the topics we were planning to cover today. Just again, kind of an overview of the transportation system that we work on together with all of you and other community partners to deliver for people across Boulder County. Talk a little bit about our current transportation funding and how we go about that in the county today, and then some options for going forward. And again, seeking your input to help guide next steps. So with that, if we could go to the next slide, Stacy, and really what this slide is meant to convey, and what we'd like to do is show a brief video to help give you all kind of an overall picture of when we talk about transportation in Boulder County. It's really about how we serve people throughout the county, and people at all ages and stages of life using all modes of transportation. So your input through the MAC is very valuable for us. But with that, Stacy, I'll ask if you could tee up the video. And this is the part where I always cross my fingers.
Hold on 1 second, I gotta stop and start again and do it right.
Boulder County is a great place to live, work, and play, with beautiful scenery, countless opportunities for recreation, a strong sense of community, and robust local economies. There's so much to love about Boulder County. Our multimodal transportation network connects our communities and places we want to go. Whether it's taking transit to work, riding a bike on the US 36 bikeway, walking our kids to school, or driving to an appointment, Boulder County's multimodal transportation network helps to get us there.
Going forward, Boulder County's transportation needs are changing, and the transportation system must adapt to meet the community's changing needs. Not everyone has access to all transportation options, and too often our current methods of transportation are too expensive and contribute to climate change and poor air quality. To achieve our community's vision of a safe, sustainable, affordable, and inclusive transportation network, we need to work together to prioritize our transportation investments and plan for a future that serves all of us.
To address the challenges we face now and in the future, Boulder County's Transportation Master Plan provides a blueprint for us to work off of. And as we prepare for the future of getting around our county, we want to continue hearing from you on what you'd like to see the county prioritize.
The TMP includes projects to improve Boulder County roadways, transit, regional trails, and bicycle and pedestrian facilities.
We're working with local and state partners on planning improvements for our regional corridors, such as Colorado 119, US 287, and Colorado 7. Our focus is on the community and giving users multimodal mobility choices regardless of where they are coming from and going to in Boulder County and beyond.
Vision Zero is our ambitious safety program. We set a goal to eliminate serious injury and fatal traffic crashes in unincorporated Boulder County by 2035. We are dedicated to achieving our goal and providing the public with a transportation system where anyone can travel about the county safely and comfortably, regardless of mode. We are going to achieve our goal by collaborating with stakeholders, engaging with the public, and using a proactive, data-driven approach to eliminate crashes and prioritize safer road design and educational strategies.
Boulder County's Mobility for All and youth transportation programs address the unique needs of our vulnerable and underserved populations. We know that transportation is essential to accessing education, healthcare, recreation, and economic opportunities in Boulder County. By enhancing mobility and transportation options for people of all ages, abilities, and incomes, we foster vibrant, healthy, and equitable communities.
We are enhancing our mountain area connections by creating programs and services that are designed for the unique needs of the county's mountain communities. We are working to continue our strong history of combining local, state, and federal funding to bring the community's transportation vision to life. Boulder County prioritizes investments in multimodal corridors to give people options to use all modes of transportation and support our clean air and climate goals. With your help, all of these programs and projects can come together to create a safe, equitable, affordable, sustainable, and resilient transportation system in Boulder County.
Great, thanks, Stacy. And hopefully, I obviously see this video quite a bit. It just is, to me, it's really inspiring to think about all of the people and all of the programs and services that we get to work on with all of you and with our other community stakeholders to help provide more mobility for people across Boulder County. So we know while we've accomplished a lot, we know we have a lot more to do, a lot more in front of us. So with that, I'd like to kind of go back to the slide deck if we can, Stacy, and I'll run through some of their transportation funding components. Great, thank you. So again, when we think about our transportation system, it's really about providing, oh, Angel, yes.
I just want to say, Stacey, you're sharing the back end. You're not showing the right.
Thank you. Yeah. So let me just do like, I had it right the first time. Oh, wait, here, let's do this.
It's all good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, did that work?
Yeah. Great, thank you. Thanks, Angel. So again, when we think about what it takes to deliver our transportation services, it's our transit, it's the regional trails, it's our roadways, it's roadway maintenance year round, it's capital maintenance. And so all of that obviously requires resources to do. And while the majority of the funding that we have for Boulder County is provided through funding sources like gas tax or vehicle registration fees, those types of sources, a very important part of our funding is provided through the current 0.1% sales tax that Boulder County's had in place now for approximately 20 years. And that is the funding that we use to provide system improvements, transit services and programs, and a lot of the multimodal aspects that you saw in the video that we just shared. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the next slide, please, Stacy. And so when we look back over the last 20 years, we've really been able to accomplish a lot. Again, not alone as Boulder County, but in partnership with all of our communities, with the Colorado Department of Transportation, the Regional Transportation District, and many other community partners to really leverage these dollars and create roadway improvement and safety projects, regional trails, new transit routes, and pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements as well. So a lot that, again, that's been accomplished over the past 20 years, but we know based on our current transportation master plan, we have a long way to go as well going forward. Let's go to the next slide, please. So when we think about what are those resources we need to continue the momentum for these multimodal solutions, we really need to think about our longer term, sustainable, reliable, predictable funding sources. And so we're looking at how do we consider that for the future, recognizing that our current 0.1% sales tax expires in mid-2024. So prior to COVID, 2024 seemed like a long way away when we first started talking about this, but realizing now where we are in mid-2022, that feels like tomorrow to me. So we really need to be thinking ahead and figuring out what are our options for continuing our transportation funding beyond 2024. So that's an important reason why we're looking at this today. Another very important reason is for the first time in a long time, thanks to many efforts by people at the state and through our federal United States Department of Transportation, for the first time in decades, there's new money available for regional, state, and federal transportation grants. And we all know that the important or secret ingredient to be able to get any of those new dollars is the ability to provide local matching funds. So we want to be able to go after these new dollars. We want to be able to leverage our local dollars, our local partnerships, and be in a position to go after new state, federal, and regional transportation funding today and into the future. So it's important that we have that longer term funding. And in terms of what the funding will accomplish, it's really all of those types of projects, capital projects like roadway, shoulder widenings to add bikeable shoulders, to add safety improvements at intersections, also to add resilience to our transportation system for bridges and culverts, and also then for transit services, mobility programs, obviously through Mobility for All and our youth transportation programs. Boulder County has our first ever coordinated human services plan. We want to be able to identify resources to bring those important services to life. And then we want to be able to continue our work with CDOT and RTD and our local communities to accomplish our regional corridors, as was mentioned in the video and in this picture is Colorado 119, but also important is Colorado 7 and 287 and others. And then we want to be able to continue investing in regional trails and bikeways. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we've been having these, providing these presentations and conversations over the last few months with different groups across Boulder County. And one of the feedback that we've gotten is people aren't quite sure what we mean by those categories of projects. And so we thought it would be helpful just to share some examples of what do we mean by roadway safety and resilience projects. These are some images, again, bikeable shoulders, improvements to mountain roadways, and intersection safety improvements. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then when we talk about transit services, one of the things I think is important, and I know many of you are aware of, is there's not one size fits all for transit. Transit comes in many shapes and sizes. Boulder County and our partners are good examples of that, from our recreational shuttles that operate during the summer months to fixed route services that are more within Boulder County, to interregional service like the partnerships that we're involved with to deliver the Flex Express service between Fort Collins and Loveland, Longmont, and Boulder. So there's a lot of different ways that we can work together and leverage resources to deliver transit services and find ways then to grow new types of transportation, new transit services in particular going forward. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. And then the regional trails and bikeways are just a quintessential part of the fabric of Boulder County. People love the bikeway systems, whether you're commuting to work, connecting to transit, or going out for a recreational ride with your family. They're just very important to provide safe connections for people to be able to travel by bike and by walking. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. And then very importantly is our mobility and access programs. Again, I mentioned our new coordinated human services plan that Angel and Cami and many of you have been involved with helping to create. Being able to have funding going forward to implement that plan and continue the support for transit pass programs for youth outreach and education. And then again, to be able to enhance our partnerships with people providing all different types of transportation mobility services. Let's go ahead to the next slide. And then our regional corridors. Again, we talk a lot about Colorado 119. You're going to hear more about that in the meeting this afternoon. Certainly Colorado 7 and US 287. Each of these regional corridors is very important in and of itself. But what I like about this graphic of the map from Boulder County's transportation plan is that it shows the importance of creating a network. All of these corridors are intended to connect with one another, again, so that people have options and choices to move all across Boulder County and with our communities, and then also make more interregional connections on beyond. So it's really creating that network of travel options for people. And so as part of the work that we've been doing the last couple of months is really looking at how can we explore options for creating choices for the Boulder County commissioners and ultimately for the voters to consider funding on beyond 2024. So, we started this process a couple of years ago in 2020 with the update of Boulder County's Transportation Master Plan. And then we were working on different funding scenarios, but with COVID, we kind of put that on pause. So this past year, we've been really working again to reactivate that work with our consultants to look at a whole variety of options and different funding scenarios. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. In addition to the technical analysis on the projects and the funding levels, Boulder County also has conducted a formal polling of voters to get input as well. And then we're out having conversations like this with all of you to get your input on what's important to you. How do we prioritize the investment in Boulder County's resources? At the end of the day, the dollars aren't our dollars, they're the public's dollars. And we're the stewards of receiving those funds and deploying them in a way that's meeting the public's expectations. So based on all of this information, all of the input, the additional input that we received tomorrow evening, the Boulder County Commissioners will be deciding over the summer whether or not to move forward with something on the ballot for November 2022 or not. So that's kind of a snapshot of the process. And then I've just got a couple more slides to share and we can open it up for questions. I mentioned we were doing scenario analysis. So we look at the full breadth of Boulder County's transportation plan and all of the capital projects and transit and mobility programs and trails, and looked at different funding levels and said on the low bookend is what we're currently doing, right? We have the 0.1% sales tax that we've had in place. And then we said, what if we looked at a high bookend? What about a penny? Because a 0.1% is a tenth of a penny. So what if we were to go all the way up to a penny? What would that look like? And then we looked at different gradations in between, a 0.25%, a 0.5, and a 0.75, and then identified different sets of projects and investments that could be made at those different levels of funding. And so again, obviously the more funding that's generated, the more types of things that can fit in that bucket. But we wanted to look at a whole range of options and trade-offs. Let's go to the next slide, Stacy. And as I mentioned, then Boulder County also did a formal poll of the voters, a telephone poll, to ask specific questions around transportation funding levels, and tested leaving the current sales tax at the 0.1%, increasing it to a 0.3%, or going up to a 0.7%. I'll say that the poll questions were asked not only about transportation, there were other questions on the poll as well about other non-transportation topics. So we just had those three questions around what level of funding would you support as a voter. The results that came back from the polling is that the voters feel most comfortable with keeping the funding at the current level of the 0.1% and just doing a straight extension for another 15 years at that funding level. The other higher levels of potential sales tax did not poll as well. Let's go to the next slide, please. So based on that, and obviously the need to sustain the work that we have going into the transportation system in terms of infrastructure as well as programs and services, we need to find a way to help prioritize that funding level, regardless if it's the 0.1% or any other. How do we slice and dice the pie? So that's really what we're centering our outreach on for all of you today, is to help provide input to help shape how could we divvy up the pie. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So when we look back over the years, the way the pie has been sliced has been approximately 60% for roadway projects, 15% for trails, regional trails, 15% for transit, and then 10% for more regional corridors. One of our options, again, this is not cast in stone, lots of room to have dialogue about this, but going forward, should we do something similar to what we've done in the past? Or in this particular example that's on the slide for going forward, it's adding in 5% for mobility and access programs. That's not something that we have traditionally had a specific slice of pie for in the past. And so by adding that in, we would reduce the roadway slice of the pie down to 55%. We would keep the 10% for regional corridors, 15% for transit, and 15% for regional trails and bikeways. But again, that's just meant as a starting point for conversation. And let's go to the next slide, please. I want to say some new work. You were the first group to see this. The work that we've done recently with our consultants is to say, depending on how we invest the transportation dollars, what type of vehicle miles traveled reduction could we anticipate, and what would the associated emissions reduction look like? And basically saying, how could we invest in a way that helps us achieve our air quality goals and our reduction in greenhouse gas goals as part of our climate action plan. This is just an initial set of those results, looking at the different types of projects and how they could, what would an annual amount of emission reduction be anticipated from those sets of either capital projects like a roadway shoulder project or regional trail or transit type services. But it gives us a chance to see what's the order of magnitude comparison among investing dollars in those different types of transportation. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, I mentioned we have the virtual public meeting tomorrow evening at 5:30. We can put information in the chat on how to register for that. And then over the summer, the Boulder County Board of County Commissioners will be considering whether or not to put an item on the ballot, and if so, at what level, and what would the specific uses be identified as part of the ballot package. So that's all the information that I have to share. And again, Stacy and I are here to help answer any questions or hear any of your suggestions.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. So what questions do we have for Kathleen at this point? I know that was a lot of information. She was here 2 months ago to kind of give a little bit of overview on the scenarios that we were running. Sandy, I see your hands up.
When was the polling done in Boulder County? I need for you to answer that, and then my next question.
Sure. The polling was done in late April, early May.
Okay, so we're in a, as we all know, inflationary time. And so I can see why people would say, no, I'm not going to give you any more money. But if it was a different time of the year, I mean, if our circumstances were different, I would believe that people would say, yes, we would give more money, or allow our taxes to go up. So I just am trying to say, I don't think people are negative about what the plans are. I mean, these are exciting plans, all necessary, but because of the inflationary rate that we're in, people are just hunkered down to not spend any extra money. And that's just a comment.
Yeah, I think that's well said, though. I think you're right. That is an important sentiment. You know, people are worried. We're in uncertain financial times. There's a lot happening around us, and I think people are wanting to be cautious.
Yeah.
I think that's really.
Thank you. It was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we do have to move on, but I know that we will have plenty of opportunity tomorrow evening to ask questions and to dig into this a little more. So if any of this piqued your interest, please register for the workshop or for the presentation that we have tomorrow, and be able to ask your questions at that point. Thank you for all your work, Kathleen and Stacy, on this project, and Tim. It's really a lot of great work.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you. So this is just going to be a quick update on the Zero Fare. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. So those of you who've been following the situation know that the EPA reclassified Denver and the North Front Range to serious non-attainment ozone area. So in response to that, the state legislature and the governor, they passed and signed Senate Bill 180. So Senate Bill 180 has some funding in it for fare free throughout the county or throughout the whole state. And then also RTD is getting a big chunk of those funds. The bill basically said that the fare free should be for no less than 30 days, I think. So RTD is going to move forward, from what I understand, to do a zero fare program in August this year and next year as well. In the bill, there was also support to expand busing. So I will schedule a presentation a little bit more in depth on this topic. At this point, what I understand is the Colorado Energy Office is working through the administration of issuing the money to both CASTA for the non-RTD areas and then RTD specifically. So I probably wouldn't be able to answer any in-depth questions on this topic, but just keep them in mind and we'll be able to answer them hopefully in one of the next upcoming meetings before August. So I'm going to try to get a presentation next month. Any minor questions that I might be able to answer on this? Okay. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move forward. So this next presentation is a follow-up. In August, I believe, Stacy gave a presentation on the 119 bikeway. So there's been lots of progress over the past half year or so, and we're going to have an update from the full project team. So as you are aware, CDOT's leading the roadway, Boulder County's leading the bikeway, and then RTD's leading the bus rapid transit portion. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to CDOT to kind of kick off this first section. Adnana, do you have a slideshow that you're going to be able to share, or is it somebody else?
Stephen's sharing a slide for all of us. Thank you, Angel, so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. So again, hello. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Adnana Murtic. I'm with CDOT. I'm the project manager for Colorado 119 Safety and Mobility Project. And today I'm joined by Stacy Proctor with Boulder County, Ali Imansapahi with RTD, and Stephen Humphrey, Muller Engineering, our consultant, actually on both projects. So we have been working away on both projects, and at the moment we're now at the what we call 30% or preliminary design milestone. We have scheduled a community meeting on June 27th, and we're really happy to have this opportunity today with you, so you can have a preview of what we will be sharing during the meeting on the 27th with public. And we also would like to ask you, I mean, we will share that on the last slide, but definitely there is a way to register for that meeting, and we would like to have you there as well. And also for any input, additional questions, or anything that you would like to discuss with project team, we will provide emails on the final slide as well. So what is it that why 119, and what is it that we're doing, and why we're doing, and what the goal is? So if you so basically 119 corridor is the highest crash corridor for motorists and second highest for bicycle traffic in Boulder County. And if you look at the left side in orange, those numbers are really high, and especially when you see fatalities, you really need to think and try to find a way to reduce those crashes. And that is basically what we are working on, and that is our goal. So just the percentages in green are really our goal with implementation of all of these improvements. So we are hoping that over 20 years following the implementation of the improvements, around 370 vehicle crashes are planned to be prevented, and so that to basically reduce that number of crashes. So again, corridor doesn't have a safe direct commuter bikeway, and building this commuter bikeway as a part of this whole effort is really one important component for all of this work that we're doing. And then RTD will be implementing bus rapid transit service in the corridor, like we already mentioned. And the corridor currently has safety and mobility challenges, and as the region grows, these could only get worse, really. And they, both projects, or all three, basically are intended to address these challenges. This slide, when you look at it and we like it, it's just like a snapshot of everything that is happening and that we're gonna be working, talking about it in the next few slides. And our project is focused really on diagonal highway between Boulder and Longmont. But as you can see from the map, those improvements, all the work that's happening is also tying into greater RTD connectivity beyond the corridor. Basically, south end of our project, this specific project is Foothills Parkway, and the north end of the project is at the Hoover Street. However, as I said, there will be more work that RTD will be working on, connecting all of that network into City of Boulder and City of Longmont. Again, we will now go into more detail, but just please, if I can ask you to pay attention to what's happening. I mean, there is a bikeway in the median. There is three bus stops, one at Niwot, Colorado 52 and 63rd, and then park and rides and at Niwot and 63rd, and multiple underpasses for bikeway under each signalized intersection. So I'm gonna hand it over to Ali from RTD, and he's gonna tell you more about the BRT service. I'm sorry, is Ali not present? I apologize, I was not aware.
Sorry, I think I was on mute. I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry about that. I have two mute buttons, one on my desk phone and one on the screen. My apologies for not having a camera on. My desktop is not equipped with camera. But my name is Ali Mansapahi. I'm the RTD project manager for this project. As the map on the previous slide showed, the vision for the Northwest Corridor and for bus rapid transit connecting downtown Boulder to North Longmont has been long envisioned. Through the Safety and Mobility Project, we are designing the infrastructure improvements on the corridor, including new stations, queue bypass lanes, and parking rides. Not only the diagonal where you see at Niwot Road and 63rd, but also two in the city of Longmont, and then other improvements on the south end around the CU campus. Over time, the BRT service will replace the current Bolt route. And you'll also note in the slides that are going to be coming later that the new stations, the new BRT stations, are actually in the median, along with the two parking rides at 63rd and Niwot. As part of the future transition from Bolt to the new BRT, we'll remove the current stops on the exterior of the roadway the way they are today. So they'll be all in the middle. And this would definitely help us provide faster and more reliable bus service. I'm going to hand it over to Stephen.
Hi, everyone. As Donna mentioned, we're going to dive into a few more details about the preliminary design that we've been working on these past few months. And we'll start here with the 63rd Street intersection. I'll apologize in advance. We don't quite have the time today to go over all the different intersections and improvements in great detail. So we tried to handpick a few that you guys might be most interested in. So anyway, we'll start here at 63rd. Got a lot going on, as you can see from the graphic here. And just a real quick check, can you guys see my arrow when I'm moving it around? Awesome. So you've been annoyed by that for the last couple minutes through some of these other slides. Anyway, we do have at this location a lot happening, including This is one of the park and ride locations that was referenced. We've got 2 BRT stations, one in the southbound direction of 119 and one in the northbound direction of 119. We'll also have quite a bit in terms of drainage, water quality, and detention improvements in this area, specifically associated with the construction of this new parking lot. We're also going to be reconfiguring a little bit the lanes and the turns, kind of the intersection configuration between our 2 intersections at 63rd. So today there's some existing through lanes and a double left on the southbound 119. We're going to be sneaking in a left turn lane that allows access to the park and ride facility, and just making some overall adjustments to the configuration between northbound intersection and southbound intersection. And then the other thing that we're going to be doing throughout the corridor, and we'll go through a little bit of a discussion about it here, is the installation of these queue bypass lanes for the buses. And these are a bit unique being in the middle of the corridor with all the real estate we have along 119, but these bypass lanes will be used during the peak hours specifically to help move the buses through these intersections more efficiently. So during those peak hours, you're going to have lots of cars, unfortunately, building up, and we're going to be working on reducing that number of the number of cars and the length of these queues. However, there still will be those cars waiting during those peak hours. And so the bus will have the ability to move up to the front of the line, receive that priority to then, in this instance, cross the intersection, load up with passengers, and then they'll have that acceleration lane to be able to get up to speed and move back over into the traveling public, and so into the general purpose lanes. And so there's a collection of these throughout the corridor that'll help move those buses through more efficiently. In addition to that, we're going to be implementing transit signal priorities and a series of other safety and operational improvements that'll help both with the safety of the intersections, but also how those intersections function and how we can move people, cars, bicyclists, you name it, all modes of transportation throughout the corridor. Some of those kinds of improvements will be upgrading signs, roadway striping, lighting, and even the signal poles themselves. And then finally, you can kind of see it even just looking at this graphic. There are an awful lot of connections at these intersections, whether you're in a car, you're riding your bike, you're walking, you're trying to get on the bus. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work to look at existing and future bike and pedestrian connections, first and final mile connections, and just not only planning today's connectivity throughout these intersections, but also the future, and making sure that we plan for that. And finally, just wanted to call it out as a note. Stacy will probably be bringing this up later, but we'll be constructing an underpass here for the bikeway as well. Like I said, an awful lot going on at 63rd. So we'll move on to the 52 intersection. This would be, from a roadway perspective, the single biggest set of improvements that we're going to have in the corridor. And again, I talked about it earlier, but one of the challenges of the 119 corridor, and honestly, some of the safety concerns, has been related to those long queues that cars that are waiting at some of these intersections 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 feet away from the intersection. And that's led to some of the safety issues in the past. When cars are moving along the corridor at 65 miles an hour, they don't expect to be waiting or having to stop for a queue that's 3,000 feet away from the intersection. So they're not as aware, and then that does lead to rear end crashes. And so this is one of the areas we worked really hard from a traffic analysis perspective at how we can reduce the queues in the future. And the outcome of that analysis was this split intersection that you can see here. And so to give you guys a little bit of an orientation, it's hard in this corridor. North is up and to the right. I apologize for that, but you've got northbound 119, southbound 119, and then you can kind of see it here in the background. This is the existing alignment of 52 and 119, and the intersection is actually combined together today. And so we're going to be shifting that slightly to the southeast and separating the two intersections by about 200 feet. That'll help both with those operational improvements I mentioned before, and it, as a really nice side benefit, I guess you could say, it allows space for that same sort of median operations we talked about before, with bus stations, the bikeway, those connections, and everything else. And then, of course, everything I mentioned before as far as some of the signal and traffic improvements will be taking place at this intersection as well. and the bikeway underpass. And so it's a pretty collaborative effort from all three sides as far as how to fit in those improvements in addition to the overall separation of the intersection. And then the final location, this is a little bit of a similar story to what we talked about at the 63rd Street intersection. This is another one at Niwot where we'll be implementing an improved or upgraded facility for the parking lot. There's an existing parking lot there today that'll be rebuilt and expanded upon. Again, you can see we've got the 2 BRT stations, the bikeway underpass. Again, we'll have similar drainage, water quality, and detention improvements. You can also see here the Q bypass lanes that are going to be constructed at all the signalized intersections. And then very similar safety and operational improvements like we kind of went through at 63rd Street, along with those pedestrian and bike access considerations. Those are way too many of the details way too quickly, but I think we had 15 minutes today, so we'll try to keep moving along here, and I'll turn it over to Stacy.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, so I'll go a little bit into some more details about the specifics for the commuter bikeway. As Angel mentioned, we were here at this group last fall, and we talked about really the goals of this project are to make a bike facility that's safe, direct, and accessible. So you can see this graphic here that kind of shows a typical section of what it'll look like. It'll be a 12-foot wide concrete path. This looks a little bit like asphalt, but it's concrete. And then 5-foot shoulders, which will be just native grasses that are mowed for visibility, but so it won't be crushed refined or paved that way. It'll just be kind of the grass that's out there, but mowed. So you can kind of see where you're going. It'll be plowed in the winter so that it can be used year round. We'll do grade separated crossings. So the underpasses that Stephen was just mentioning, those will be at the major intersections. And then we'll connect to those BRT stations. Again, what you saw in those previous 2 slides, those connections to the transit. E-bikes will be allowed on the bikeway. Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes will be allowed. And we'll also connect to the existing bike networks along the corridor. We'll have it'll be ADA accessible, and then it'll be in the median, basically between the northbound and southbound lanes. Again, it's a very wide median, and so we're able to build a bikeway there without having to get acquire any property, because we'll be able to do it on the CDOT owned land there. Next slide, yeah. So this is kind of just an outline of the whole corridor and kind of showing what the crossings will look like. So we have several creek crossings. So on the south end, we'll be crossing 4 Mile Canyon Creek with a bridge that will span the 100-year floodplain. It's basically, if you know the area out there, it's right where the 4 Mile Canyon Creek path is. That's kind of where the start will be. And then on the north end, we'll have another bridge at Left Hand Creek to cross that. And then, as Stephen was mentioning, we'll have underpasses at all the major intersections. So J Road, 63rd, Highway 52, and then at Hover. And then we'll have street level crossings at some of the minor areas along the corridor. This map doesn't show, there's a lot of irrigation infrastructure, so we'll have crossings there as well. But these are kind of the more important, or ones that I figured most people are more interested in. Next slide. So for the street level crossings, what we're looking at is, this is just kind of an example at 55th. And basically the idea is that we'll have that crossing kind of in the middle of the street there, so that turning vehicles from 119 will have a little bit of time to complete their turn and see that they need to stop for any bikes or pedestrians that are crossing. We'll have signage kind of notifying vehicles that they need to slow down and yield to the bikes and pedestrians. And then it'll be a raised crossing, and you can see, it might be kind of hard to see in that picture, the raised crossing, but it's basically, where there's a slight incline as you approach those triangles, so that you drivers kind of notice like, okay, there's something happening here. I need to be looking around and realizing what might be going on. The green on here is the site triangle, just to making sure that everyone can see each other and the importance of that. And then the list here, these are where we plan to do those street level crossings. At the less busy crossings, basically, is where we'll be having the street level, and then at the others we'll have underpasses. Next slide. Yeah, so this is an example, kind of a different view of what an example underpass will look like. The vehicles going above it, it'll be a box culvert, 10 feet high by 14 feet wide is the plan for those underpasses. I think that's my last slide. One thing I just did want to mention, we don't have time to go into it now, on the alignment of the bikeway. There have been some adjustments to that since we last met. And so we'll be going over that at the public meeting. We just didn't have time to go into that today. So, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Adnana. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, so as you can see, both projects, safety and mobility improvements and bikeway project, we're definitely working through all and figuring all these design elements. And then at the moment, as I said, we're at that preliminary or 30% design, and the plan is to complete final design in summer of 2023. And our first major joint outreach with the public is upcoming community meeting. However, throughout design, our community advisory committee and equity advisory committee have been guiding our projects, and they have been really great help providing their time and input for both projects. And we actually had a chance earlier this month to share a version of this presentation with them and get their feedback. And construction of immediate project elements is targeted to begin in early 2024. And as we work through final design, we'll definitely have more information about schedule and construction impacts. And we are planning to share that information at our final community meeting. It's anticipated to be scheduled for summer 2023, which would align, as I said, with that final design. And throughout these projects, definitely everyday coordination almost, with so many groups, and definitely appreciate Boulder County, City of Boulder, City of Longmont, RTD Commuting Solutions. I mean, and we definitely look forward to continuing this collaboration. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity and for letting us be here today. And as I said a couple times, that our community meeting is on the 27th, and then on the slide there is a link that you can use to register in advance for this, to participate in this meeting. And again, if you have questions, need any information, or just simply would like to provide feedback to the design team, there's two emails on the slide. One is for a bikeway project, another one is for safety and mobility improvements project. And please get in touch with us. We'll be happy to reach out to you. And again, we look forward to continuing to work together to improve transportation in our region.
Great, thank you so much, Adnana and everybody else. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. So Elaine Erb from BTC, Boulder Transportation Connections, was wondering if there's anything that will be done to address people running red lights along the corridor. I don't know if we have any enforcement mechanism or anything like that.
I would definitely say that is a hard one, and I think probably all of us here would like to see that, be prevented. But it's definitely, I'm hoping that with these improvements and the improving operations throughout the corridor, that there will be less congestion and less need, hopefully, for those people to do so. So that's definitely something that we would like to see.
Great, thank you. And just from like an engineering design perspective, you're definitely taking safety into account. So hopefully that'll also reduce it. The next question that we have is from Matthew Helfand from Dr. Cog, and he was wondering if pedestrians will be allowed to use the bikeway.
Oh yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, our pedestrians will be allowed to use the bikeway. And one thing I didn't mention is that around the station areas, we're designing it to be 16 feet wide. So there'll be more, we anticipate that's where we'll have most of our pedestrian traffic. And so we'll have a wider bikeway there so that people have a little bit more room to maneuver around each other.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? I did put the registration link for the upcoming meeting in the chat. So if you just want to click on that and register, you can do that. And I just want to thank you all for a very inclusive planning process. I know that you've done a lot of effort and thought into how to make the Community Advisory Committee equitable and really represent all perspectives. And then also your Latinx Equity Committee has been invaluable as well. So just thank you for taking a very deliberate and equitable approach in this project. Any last comments, questions before we move on? Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next presentation, let me go ahead and share. So the next presentation is from Oscar, and Oscar is our, I'll probably mess it up, Leah, sorry, but it's our Office of Sustainability, Climate Action, and Resiliency. Did I get it right?
You got it right,
Okay.
yes.
It's just so much easier to say Oscar. So Leah, she oversees a program of matching grants with municipalities. So I asked her to come here today to talk about it a little bit with us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Angel, for having me. This is a really wonderful meeting. So I wear two hats at the county. One is on partnerships with our municipalities on all things sustainability. And the other hat I wear is on for transportation electrifications, electric vehicles, and e-bikes. So today I'm going to wear my partnership with municipalities hat and wanted to share about our Boulder County Environmental Sustainability Matching Grant Program. Next slide. Great. So the intent for the grant program is really to provide an opportunity for municipalities to support their specific sustainability priorities. You know, the priorities in Jamestown are very different from those in Longmont and different from Superior. So we really want to give them the opportunity to fund what their community needs. The program has been around since 2014, and we've funded over 1.4 million in local sustainability projects. And on this slide, you can see I listed just a few examples, but they really cover the full spectrum of transportation, climate, energy, waste, water, local food and ag. And this is a fun photo of Louisville's community vegetable garden that we help support. Next slide. And then it shifted a little bit. The program shifted starting in 2020 when the revenue from the sustainability tax started. You'll recall the voters passed that funding, and we're really grateful for the support. So projects have to be consistent with the purposes of the sustainability tax, and that's promoting environmental sustainability. Projects also need to demonstrate a need in the community, kind of a program need, and benefits to the community at large. You can see here I listed the categories of funding, and I think for this group, you're probably most interested in climate, transportation, sustainability planning, and business sustainability. Next slide. Getting into a little bit more of the specifics. So it's important to note that only municipalities can apply for this funding in Boulder County. However, I definitely encourage interested parties to contact a municipality to propose a collaborative project. They're, I think, very receptive to suggestions. And so don't hesitate to reach out if you have a project idea. It is important that, I like to say, we don't want pet projects. We want projects that are fulfilling a municipality's sustainability priorities and are broadly supported through, a public engagement process or planning process. Oh, and I should also clarify, it's just one application per municipality, but we do see multiple projects. So we'll often see, for example, a transportation project, say, I'm just going to give an example, but maybe Longmont would pursue a transportation project. They would do a water conservation project to save water in outdoor irrigation and maybe offer some solar incentives to residents. So while it's only one application per municipality, they often do multiple projects. And I would also mention that most projects are implemented by the municipality themselves, but I definitely see plenty of examples of municipalities with community partners. Resource Central for water conservation has been a partner with some in the past. Longmont partnered with the Community Foundation on a project for sustainability at one point. So definitely partnerships are totally fine. In terms of timelines, it is an annual application cycle, and next applications open at the end of September this year. So it's good timing. If you do have ideas, this is a good time to share those with municipal partners and see if they'd be receptive to a partnership. The annual budget is around $500,000, and the funding is allocated by population per municipality. So the lower threshold is $15,000 for some of our smaller mountain communities, and then Longmont and Boulder are higher amounts to match the population density. There is a match requirement. Municipalities must match 25%, and we encourage leveraging existing federal and state funding before this grant program. So if anyone's familiar with the electric vehicle charging station program, Charge Ahead Colorado at the state level, I really encourage folks to tap that funding and then fill the county funding with gaps where state and federal funding isn't available. I think that's what I have. I'm happy to take any questions that people might have.
So Leah, I have a question regarding timing and who at the cities, at the municipalities, should people reach out to if they have a good transportation sustainability project idea?
Yeah, I would recommend reaching out to the respective sustainability coordinators at the municipality. And Angel, if you want, I don't know if there's a good way that we could distribute that to this group, but I'd be happy to send the name, the municipality, and maybe an email address if that's helpful for folks.
Yeah, that would be great. I could attach it to the follow-up email that we have here.
Okay.
So just to recap, this is part of our local funding series that we're doing, local and regional funding series. So thank you so much for talking to us a little bit about the Oscar funding opportunities. Just to recap, if you are a nonprofit or a transportation provider looking to try to get funding for a sustainable transportation project, you would reach out to your municipality and see if they are interested in that project, and then you can apply jointly with them taking the lead on it. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah, you got it, Angel.
Great, thank you. So do we have any questions for Leah before we move on to the next presentation? Okay. I just thank you so much, Leah, for taking the time to talk to us about this program. It's a great way to innovate and have the local municipalities really take the lead and come up with creative ideas.
Yeah, thanks, Angel.
Thank you. Okay. So the next presentation we have is in the same vein. It's talking about funding that's available at the local level here. This is actually federal and state funds, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Carol, and she's going to talk a little bit about the timing of the Older American Act dollars and how Boulder County administers them differently from DRCOG. So just so you know, if you are a regional partner, DRCOG administers the Older American Act funds for the large urbanized Denver area, and Boulder County administers the Older American Act funds for Boulder County specifically. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Carol, and just let me know when you want me to advance, Carol.
All right, thanks, Angel. I appreciate it. I'm just also going to ask for your flexibility and patience. I'm just going to take myself off camera. We've got a lot of construction going on today, and our AC decided to go out. So I'm super hot and sweaty, and I'm going to prevent, like, you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to go off video, but if you want to go to the next slide, Angel, I wanted to provide just a little bit of an overview of where our funds come from and kind of walk you through what the intent is and our plans and next steps for that. So we are mandated, we being AAAs, Area Agencies on Aging, are mandated by the Older Americans Act, federal legislation that allocates federal funds to area agencies on aging to support older adults and caregivers to live well and age well safely in community. As those funds sort of trickle down through the various filters that we have through federal and state funds at the Colorado level, the funds are managed by the Colorado State Unit on Aging. And we sort of lump all those together and call them state funds for senior services. So those funding sources have very similar intents and uses. So we get to parse those out, and that's on the next slide. But basically our role in all of that is to identify local community needs and fund providers that can meet those needs, as well as provide some services directly. Next slide, please. So this is kind of an overview, and it's a lot of content, so I'm not going to go through all of it. You can look back if you need to. But really, this is just pointing out that we have several buckets of funds that we can provide services through the Older Americans Act. And again, the state funds sort of reflect similar utilization. So administration obviously is to administer, so we keep that internally to do our contracts and things like that. The biggest pot of funds that we tend to utilize is B, which is access, home, and community-based services. We call those supportive services. C covers nutrition services. We get both services funds for congregate meal sites, as well as home delivered meals and other services. The D pot of funds goes to disease prevention and health promotion, while E goes to caregiver. We also get a couple of pots of funds for long-term care and elder rights. It's a very small amount, and that doesn't have to do with transportation. Next slide, please, Angel. Oh, I had extra stuff in there. Right, so this is an overview of what we're looking at for our state funds and federal funds for the next fiscal year, starting in July. It's just an overview of the pots that they fall into and sort of our budgeting of those funds. We're able to move some funds around by pot, but that is limited to something like 30%. I think that covers it for now. I did want to call out that we have received several rounds of, I would say, COVID relief funds. I think we go over those in a minute, the specific other ones. But specific to ARPA, we did receive a large distribution, $997,000, almost $1 million. And what we focused on is to, again, sort of push through to the providers that we're working with and the immediate community needs. As you can see, we've allocated some of that for FY23, both internally and externally. But we've also carved out a pot of funds that we're going to be leaving open for our spring request for proposals. That's part of our normal funding cycle, and we're just adding that to sort of our normal pot of funds. Next slide, please. So what's interesting about the Older Americans Act, while that is very much steady, I would say, to the extent that federal funds can be, and the state funds truly are, we have a few factors to consider when we're budgeting into the next, say, 5 years. Oftentimes, they're project-based, whether it's state or federal funds that might come around for a little while, but then go away. And just as sort of context for that, for us, that means we want to build out projects, but not necessarily build out services, because those are funds we're not going to have in the future to fund services. So this might be a one-time project kind of service or things like that. But really, I wanted to point out that for us as a fiscal agent, we're really looking at that sort of fiscal cliff that we're facing within the next 5 years of sort of losing these additional funding sources that we received over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. This is just an overview really quickly. I'm not going to go through all of it, but these are our internal programs that are covered with Older Americans Act and state funds. Obviously, we have administration and coordination. We have a big in-home services voucher program that covers homemaker and personal care services. We work with several agencies on that. Following under caregiver is caregiver respite. We provide direct caregiver reimbursement as well as fund adult daycare. We provide financial assistance. Again, we have the elder rights funds, long-term care ombudsman, and nutrition services. So for our external grants, I really hope you're not hearing all the, Jean's doing a good job of breaking out the construction sounds and you're not getting that. For our external grantees, we have Cultivate, who provides tours and some transportation, as you'll see on the next slide. They also provide home delivered meals and congregate meals, not they. Louisville Senior Services and Nederland area seniors do that. We have counseling available for older adults and caregivers for mental health. Audio Information Network, Center for Social Facilities and Insight provide specific services for older adults who are visually impaired or blind. And we have the 3 legal assistance providers that we've been working with to provide legal assistance. Next slide, please. All right, so these are our current funded transportation providers. Obviously, VIA is a big player in Boulder County, and Cultivate has been a great partner with their VetsGo program. And we're able to refer people directly to them, and they also maintain their own lost services and get their reimbursement for those. So for those of you who are here learning about funding opportunities, this is our typical budget cycle. As I mentioned, we have federal and state funds that we always are going on a sort of RFP cycle with. So despite some of those going away, we do this typically every 2 years. The current grant year, and I should have updated this, I was supposed to present in April, here I am now, but our current grant year will run from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. We typically look at our internal budget for budget requests in January through April, while we then pivot to our external partners March through April. We do an RFP every 2 years, so that would be upcoming 2023 spring between March and April, and then again in 2025. I'm so sorry, and it's mine, and I wish I could control the fact that it was back there. They won't turn it off for me, I guess. I'm on. Hopefully, you get this information from the. There we go. I didn't. So apologies. In June, we put in our funding request to the state, and typically those contracts start in July. We typically get any carryover funds available in October, so we're able to support folks that way. If there's additional funding requests or projects that get built out. And then, sorry, I don't see what I put through there. Mid-year review. So typically around January, we're able to look at what funds we have available left over from what people have utilized. And if people are underspending or we ourselves are underspending, we have a potential to provide additional funding. Okay. And hopefully it'll stay quiet for this one, because this is a good one for you all. When we're looking at proposals, when we're funding, we're looking at organizational capacity, staffing and coordination, service delivery history, fiscal costs and information around sort of what it costs to provide the service, the ability to comply with service-specific grant requirements, ability to provide information and referral to other community partners, to align with our identified service priorities, which those will be forthcoming in our upcoming strategic plan. So that would be a good reference as well, and sort of something to keep your eye out for. We'll be issuing our strategic plan before the RFP is released. And then the final piece is targeting and outreach. We have specific categories of older adults and caregivers that we look for, including low-income minority, and rural older adults. The final piece of that is conducting outreach to promote your services, which most folks do anyway, so it's not usually a problem. Something to consider when you're thinking about applying for Older Americans Act funds are these bullet points, what the Older Americans Act is intended to provide. So we're looking for systems and services, basically that support living in community. They provide a range of options. They provide information on any aging or disability issue. as I mentioned, those areas of targeting for specific populations and effective agency to agency referrals. We're really looking for connectors. Next slide, please. So here's the timeline, just more of a linear view of what we overviewed earlier and what's coming up. Again, I'll let you reference that at another time. And next slide, please. There we go. So of course my noise stopped right as I finished the presentation, and I really apologize for that. I did try to load the slides up with as much information as possible. So feel free to review those and feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions about anything that we talked about today. And I'm happy to answer any questions right now.
Does anybody have any questions for Carol on the Older American Act funds, in particular the ones that go to transportation? I guess I have one question. I think I remember the answer, but can organizations apply for Older American Act funds to purchase bus passes for older adults?
That is a great question. We've gone a little bit back and forth with the state on this, but they have created a new way that we could do that. So the short version is yes. I won't explain the detail. There is some record keeping and things like that around that, but we can do that.
Okay, that's good news. I thought that for a while you all couldn't, so that's good to know.
Yes, they've
Also-
moved in a flexible direction, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's great. Also, with a lot of new incentives around e-bikes, I've heard from a lot of the older adult communities that I work with that there's a lot of interest in e-bikes. Have you all considered funding like an e-bike program with the Older American Act dollars?
That's a great question. I would say no one has come to us with that sort of project proposal before. It has come up in some of our, we have an aging advisory council. And so when we look at sort of community issues or priorities, transportation and drilling down a bit more on how to support and build out safe, accessible biking in Boulder County has come up. But I would say that we haven't received any proposals in the past for that. I would say similar to the other, if there are organizations that could partner to sort of make that happen, it's always more appealing. But what's great about our funds is we can sort of decide based upon the projects that are presented to us. So
great. Okay, any last minute questions for Carol? Thank you. I know that it was hard to hear, but
apologies.
Lindsay's always on these calls, so if you have Older American Act Fund questions, she might be able to convey them to Carol. And Lindsay, I know that Carol mentioned a little bit about the strategic plan update. I don't know if you have like a quick update that you wanted to say about that, or if you want, we can do it during next meeting.
I would be happy to talk about that whenever. Probably something more thorough at the next meeting I can do for sure. We have a couple components of that coming up. Our community assessment survey for older adults, the CASOA, occurs every 4 years. The last time we had it was in 2018. So this is really a quantitative data poll from the community that is statistically valid, that we use in some of our decision making, including around some of funding and funding priorities. I have background noise too. I know you can hear him. He's very cute.
Yes.
Better than a saw, maybe. Sorry, Carol, I beat you on that one. So we've got the CASOA coming up. We also have our community conversations coming up. This is more of a qualitative data poll where we get together with the community and especially subpopulations of our community to talk more about gaps in services and needs. So we have several of those scheduled now and are working to schedule more of the subpopulation groups right now. I can pop some of that into the chat. But we will be reaching out to our mountain communities that we serve with our mountain resource specialists, caregivers, LGBTQ+ population, residents of long-term care, Spanish-speaking community members, and much more in that work. And you'll be seeing us here as well to talk more about transportation, and I'll be hopefully doing some engagement around that. So that's the quick version, but all of that will do a strategic plan next year.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we'll have you do a more in-depth update on that at one of our internally facing meetings. So really exciting. And then also, I'm sure a lot's changed since 2019 with older adults. So that's great. Okay, so moving on, Julie, I'm pretty sure I saw your name on here. Julie's going to be providing an update on the service optimization plan. And I forget, I think you were here about 5 or 6 months ago, Julie. So this is kind of just a continuation or an update on what she was talking about last time. So I'll stop sharing my screen and then I'll give you control.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I've actually got 2 individuals from RTD. I've got Doug Monroe and Brian Welch that are going to lead this discussion. We're going to hand it off to Doug, who has been our lead on the system optimization plan. Doug, would you like to jump in?
Sure. I guess I don't know what was brought up last time Julie presented to this group, but you know, I was coming today to, I guess, talk about changes that we've made to the system optimization plan since the last time Julie was here, because I think she had presented on what the system optimization plan entailed at the time. And, you know, we received many comments, over 1,600 comments from across the district, and you know, gave us some good insight into what we were planning as far as for the system optimization plan. And you know, taking those comments and, you know, having conversations with the local municipalities, Boulder County, Longmont. We had many meetings with many of them across the district, able to make some changes to the system optimization plan. And I think, you know, the relevant portions impacting the Northwest area here, Boulder County in particular, are on the Flatiron Flyer, Route AB, the Route LX out of Longmont. For the Flatiron Flyer, what we're planning now. Previously for the Flatiron, the FF2, which is the express between Denver and Boulder, we had been planning that the FF2 would operate only in the peak period, peak direction. And since we've in the changes that we've made to it, that route will now operate bi-directionally at both peaks. So you'll be able to go from Denver to Boulder in the morning and from Boulder to Denver in the morning, and vice versa in the afternoon. It'll operate both directions along US 36 at both peaks now. One that we heard from up in Longmont was the desire for, we had originally proposed what was previously referred to as Route LX1, which ran along Highway 66 to I-25 down to Denver. And we, you know, heard a lot of feedback that people would like that to go through Longmont rather than, you know, just at the northern edge of Longmont along Highway 66. So that has been modified to what was previously the LX2, which operates on US 287 in between Longmont and Denver. So it would run down US 287 and then on Highway 52 over to I-25. And then I think the last one that impacts the Boulder area, especially, and Boulder Junction in particular in Boulder, is the Route AB. And we had heard that what we had originally proposed was that Route AB, all the trips would operate out of downtown Boulder Station. Previously, there were a few trips each day that operated out of Boulder Junction Station. And, you know, Boulder, the city of Boulder's desire to, you know, activate that site more and have more transit service there. So those additional trips that we had originally proposed to operate out of downtown Boulder Station will now be proposed to operate out of Boulder Junction Station. So that'll be similar to how that route operated prior to the COVID service suspensions. So for that, we're planning to release the updated system optimization plan later this week, and in that you'll have all the details of everything that we're proposing. But you know, I guess I'm here to answer any questions about the system optimization plan as a whole, or any of the changes that we made, and I'm happy to answer any of those.
Thank you. I think one question that I keep hearing, and I don't necessarily know the answer to, and I'm not sure if you all do either, but is the routes that have been included in the SOP but still are not operating after COVID, how is RTD determining when they're going to bring those routes back?
Right. So our biggest challenge right now is bus operators. You know, we don't have enough operators really to operate the service that we have on the street right now. We're at about 70% of where we were pre-COVID. So, we're out there relying on volunteers to actually take on overtime to cover as much work as we can currently. The system optimization plan is designed to take us back to about 85% of our pre-COVID service levels. So though that is, that's based on our financial projections for the next 5 years or so. But really our more limiting factor is our operators right now. So as we have operators available, we're going to be increasing service as we have operators available to do it. I don't think we have a particular priority list at this point, but I'd have to say, knowing where we're experiencing the greatest need currently, a lot of it is in this area, the Flatiron Flyer especially. And we just don't have the operators currently to bring back any more service on that one. But I'd have to imagine that one's high on the list when hopefully hiring picks up for operators. We had a new collective bargaining agreement earlier this year that increased wages for operators. We're starting to see a little bit bigger classes of operators come in, and hopefully that trend continues, and we're able to have more operators and restore more service. So as that happens, we'll be going through our 3 times a year service changes that we do already, and that so for each of those service changes, the service will be based on the SOP and based on the number of operators that we have available and based on the need at that time. And knowing where the need is right now is like I give the example for the Flatiron Flyer, and just trying to address where we're currently seeing overloads basically, and where that need is especially needed right away.
Great, thank you. In the chat, Elaine had asked a question about, is there a chance that the GS would come back into the SOP?
Yes, the GS service is included in the system optimization plan. So that's the bus in between Boulder and the Golden Federal Center area. And that is included as part of the system optimization plan. So yeah, that is in there.
Great, thank you. And Jeff, I see your hands up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I was just wondering if you could provide a little more detail on what the peak service hours are for the FF2.
Typically 6 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m. And I think that's where it would start when we're able to reintroduce it. I think prior to COVID, it bled a little into the fringes around that as well, just based on what the demand on the FF1 was at those times, and whether we needed that additional service. So, but traditional peaks are 6 to 9 and 3 to 6, and I think we'll evaluate how ridership is during that period, and then look at exactly when it stops and when it ends for that particular service.
Excellent. And just quickly, maybe I missed this. When do you anticipate these changes taking place?
So as far as actual changes taking place, we're anticipating taking this to the RTD Board of Directors for approval next month. As far as actual changes taking place, that's kind of resource dependent. There are many changes in it that involve reroutes and things like that that can be implemented sooner, and I think we'll probably start seeing some of that in the January 2023 run board. But as far as actual service increases, like I said, that's dependent on the bus operator situation, and when we can actually have people to cover the work that is out there. So it could be as soon as January 2023, or it could be later. It all depends on what our manpower outlook looks like.
Great, thank you.
So I have a question from a coalition perspective. Is there anything that we can do to be able to help you with the driver shortage? Do you have toolkits that you can share with organizations to be able to help raise awareness?
I'm honestly not sure from the planning department perspective. I know that we participate in hiring events and things like that, and I'm sure that if you do some outreach or something like that, and you want to include something in there about RTD is hiring drivers, I'm sure that our human resources would be more than willing to work with you on that, and that's certainly something that I can connect you with.
Okay, great. And then also one last question on the driver shortage. Have you all been working with the county workforce boards? A lot of the counties around the region have their own Department of Labor workforce boards.
Yeah, again, I'm honestly not sure on that one. I imagine that we're working with something like that, but I can't say for sure. I know that recruiting operators is front and center on a lot of management's mind here at RTD. So I'm sure they're doing everything they can, but I can't say exactly what that is.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be able to spread the word. I'll reach out to probably Christina and see if I can get some collateral content to be able to include in newsletters.
Okay.
But we really appreciate it, and we want you all to, have your employee needs, your driver's needs fixed so that we can move as a region forward. So just thank you for taking the time, and thank you for considering bringing back the FF2 and the GS and a lot of the other like the LD that impact a lot of our communities.
You're welcome.
You have any questions, final questions for RTD? Okay, well, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Doug, and thank you, Brian. Also, I'm going to put something in the chat. RTD is also doing the system-wide fare study and equity analysis. So you all know I'm on that, on the equity committee for that, and they have 2 events that I included in the newsletter. Actually, Chloe included in the newsletter. So I'll go ahead and put those in the chat. This is your opportunity to be able to share your opinions regarding the RTD Live program and the youth discount program. So the people that you serve have been navigating the RTD Live program for about 3 years now. So this is a good opportunity to kind of have those lessons learned that the nonprofits across the region are experiencing. So there's one meeting in English and one meeting in Spanish, and you can find the information in the newsletter that we sent out last week in addition to the chat. Does anybody have any comments on the equity fare analysis? We'll probably have somebody from RTD formally give a presentation on it coming up here. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we'll talk about, we have a couple more minutes. What other updates do people want to share with the group? I know there's a lot going on. Does Dr. Mack have any updates?
Dr. Mack does not have too many updates right now. Apologies, my camera's not working. But right now we're really just trying to focus on our in-person travel training sessions. We're also incorporating new transportation options into our already established travel training program. So if you've taken our travel training sessions before, I recommend that you take them again, just because we want to be more inclusive with our transportation options and make sure that everyone has something that they are able to use. So I'll put my contact information in the chat. If you're interested in learning more about travel training, you can reach out to me via email.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, Latoya, she does 4 virtual travel training sessions, and then you do the in-person. Is there any way to kind of just do the in-person?
Yes, so that's what, thank you for asking for clarification. Yeah, so Latoya Pranti is the, she's gonna be doing all of the in-person travel training sessions. So we are able to do, our 101, all of the 4 travel training sessions before that graduation trip, those can all be in person now. So folks have the option to either take the virtual trainings and then do an in-person trip, or just do them all in person. You can reach out to me again if you're interested in doing anything like that. So you can do them both virtually and in person for all of the trainings.
That's great. And I know that Chloe's going to be reaching out to set up a lunch and learn with you all for our human services staff to kind of get the word out about that a little bit more.
Oh, awesome. I'll keep an eye out. Thank you.
So I'll just probably start calling on people. I know BTC's been working with CPWD. Do you want to plug the event that you've been working on, Elaine?
Why, yes, thank you. I was just pulling up that and I put a link to the chat. So this is, of course, Walk and Bike Month, and BTC's been working along with Community Cycles on making sure it's a fun, active month. So if you can or want to cycle on June 22nd, that's Bike to Work Day. There will be over 40 breakfast stations in the community. So it's just really exciting to be approaching back to pre-COVID times with that. And then on Saturday, June 25th, we're doing an event along with CPWD, and Open Space Mountain Parks are providing some adaptive bikes. That will be down by the Boulder Municipal Building, so right there by Canyon and Broadway, where Craig Towler will help people go out on wheelchairs and see what it's like to navigate. So for our community that uses this all the time, I think it's really helpful for the rest of us to have that experience. And this is a great opportunity to try that out, but also riding adaptive bikes. It's really just that great experience of what it's like for people to be able to have the opportunity to get out and do events like that and activities. So I'm really glad that we could make this happen. And also just check out the walkandbikemonth.org. There's still some other events coming up that are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the accessibility event was really great. I participated a few years back and my kids absolutely loved the adaptive bikes. The hand crank bike was the favorite. So they kind of fought over that one. So it's a good Saturday, right? It's a Saturday event.
It is on Saturday. We're starting at 10, be wrapped up by 1, just hoping to avoid some of the heat of the day. There's also, last weekend, there was a kids bike safety rodeo we'd done at Meadows. We'll have one of those coming up July 7th at Boulder Main Library. So, it's just great to get the whole family out experiencing all the different things.
Yeah, you can go to the Boulder Farmers Market and then swing by that. It'll be fun. Great, thank you, Elaine. And I'm gonna, Audrey, I don't know if you're prepared to talk about this, but I know you all are doing a Flatiron Flyer push. I don't know if you want to give a plug for that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Commuting Solutions began in April the Flatiron Flyer Ridership Challenge to increase awareness about the Flatiron Flyer service between Boulder and Denver, and to give away a free regional day pass. And there's also an incentive program for people who track their trips on My Way to Go. They'll be entered to win in a contest for 3 $150 prizes. So if you can go to our website, commutingsolutions.org, to learn more about the program, that would be amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, let's see. Does anybody else have an update that they want to share? I'll probably start calling out more people.
Angel, it's Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Just so everybody knows, the public meetings for the proposed August service changes are on next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Let me just double check. So I was just looking at the website and I can't find it on the website. So I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
But Tuesday, the 21st, from noon to 1, and Wednesday, the 22nd, there are 2 meetings, one from noon to 1, and then 1 evening meeting from 5:30 to 6:30. So I'll keep searching. I'll send you the link and then you can pass it on as soon as I figure out where that information is.
Okay, that sounds good. And just to recap, there's not a lot of changes for Boulder County. I know that the 228 was included in that. Is there any other major changes that we should be on the lookout for?
We're returning service back for school starting up. So on the 204, 206, 225, Jump Dash,
skip and I missed something, a whole bunch. And then, for the 228, we're going ahead, we're putting the stop in Superior on Main and Gateway. We have not been able to finish coordination with City of Lafayette due to challenges in getting contractors on board. Don't have anybody on call to get those stops in. So the route changes up to Forest Park Drive and Sister Carmen area, we're looking to do by January. We're coordinating with City of Lafayette, and they've been fantastic in helping us out and getting this going. So that will be on the list for January for sure.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yep.
Hey, Angel, I found that link and threw it in, Natalie also. And then I threw in another link because it looks like RTD's fair study. Because there aren't enough meetings this month, there is something for the fair study coming up June 23rd as well.
Yeah, I know. I think that we went back and forth for June. We've had 4 different public meetings, and yeah, it's been a crazy public meeting month. Sandy, do you have any updates for the Longmont tab?
I don't think so. We are hearing from Stacy Proctor tonight, probably the same presentation that she gave today. And we're talking about the CHIP program, the capital improvement program for the city of Longmont.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I see a couple people from VIA on. Does anybody want to give an update for VIA?
Angel, thanks for the invite. This is Jen with VIA for Mobility. We don't have any major updates right now, but thanks for asking.
Great, thank you. Anybody, Rebecca, I don't know if Impact is any closer to releasing the RFP for the, I forget what it's called, the navigator position. I don't know if you're still on.
I'm sorry. It's like looking at something else. Yes, we actually, that RFP should be going out pretty soon. It's with risk management right now. And so it is a systems navigation position for IDD, TB.
So IDD is intellectual and developmental disabilities, and then they also have traumatic brain injury. That's where we left off as TBI, Rebecca.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my acting a little funky here. Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Anyway, the systems navigation position is with Boulder County Risk Management right now. And so it should be going out fairly soon. It's for a designated position for systems navigation for persons with IDD, TBI, and autism within Boulder County. And we're looking for an agency that will provide this position. We also, the other update I have is we're very, very excited. We have the National Center for START Services from University of New Hampshire coming in. They will start in August. We will do a kickoff with as many people as we can get there. START stands for Systemic Therapeutic Assessment, Resources, and Treatment. And it is a mental health program for persons with IDD, and they will be also highlighting TBI and autism within Boulder County. So it's persons with dual diagnosis. So if there are any agencies on here that would be interested in being a part of this, they should contact me.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're almost done. I have a couple of updates if nobody else does. I wanted to let everybody know that our technology education workshop series, that Chloe is leading a project to work with CPWD, DVR, and other organizations that serve people who are low vision, vision impaired, or blind. And we're going to be updating the curriculum to make sure that it is fully accessible to low vision, vision impaired, and blind folks. So that's a project that will probably last around 5 months, just to kind of update that and have an inclusive planning process. Additionally, we held a public meeting last week on the POP, is what it's called. So it's Program of Projects. And I saw a couple of you on that meeting. So the Program of Projects is a requirement of the Federal Transit Administration. So we're going through that process to identify which transit services we will spend the ARPA funds that Boulder County is receiving from FTA. So I will put in the chat a link to our website. And on that website, there's a video of the recording, and then there's also instructions on how to provide comments on that. So really, it's a public requirement, a public engagement requirement. We want to make sure that we get everybody's opinion on how those ARPA dollars that Boulder County and RTD came to an agreement last October on how Boulder County would be the direct recipient of those. And we want to make sure that we're spending those and bringing back the services that people depend on. So I'll put that link in the chat. And if there's no other comments or questions, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Angel.
Thanks. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Angel.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks so much, Angel. It was great to see you.
Great to see you. I didn't know you were with VIA now.
Yes, brand new. It's been one whole week.